homage to teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to compassionate lineage masters. The unsurpassed, profound, subtle Dharma rarely encountered in 100,000 eons. Now that I am able to see, hear, receive, and uphold it, may I truly understand the Tathagata's genuine meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, please let us give rise to the Supreme Bodhicitta. We will continue our discussion of the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. Previously, we extensively talked about the revered Sixth Patriarch, Master Huineng. At first, he appeared to everyone as a remarkably ordinary person in terms of his humble outward appearance and simple demeanor, not immediately revealing his profound spiritual wisdom. He journeyed to the revered fifth patriarch, Hongren, a highly esteemed spiritual master, and commenced a period of rigorous ascetic practice and profound meditation that extended for a significant duration of 8 months. Despite his inherent wisdom and exceptional spiritual insight, possessing such great merit and remarkably sharp faculties as a teacher, he humbly dedicated himself to this demanding spiritual discipline. He was still made to undertake ascetic practices. He himself was not arrogant at all and naturally began working together with the monastic community. So in the last class, I also emphasized this to everyone. Whether we are lay practitioners or monastics, we must destroy the arrogance within our minds, especially those who, in the past, had some knowledge, status, wealth, or talent in the world. People who possess outstanding qualities in various aspects tend to have this kind of habitual tendency. They think that their particular merits and strengths should surpass others. They often look down on others or can't stand what they see. This creates certain obstacles to developing both worldly and spiritual qualities within oneself. There are definite hindrances, so everyone should reflect inwardly on their own mind. Actually, I don't really have anything worth being arrogant about. Maybe in some specific areas I am indeed a bit better than some others in certain particular qualities. For example, I might have proudly graduated from a certain prestigious university, or perhaps I was a truly successful and accomplished person in the world before embarking on this spiritual journey. But after entering the profound Buddhist path, one's Buddha nature should not be divided into north or south, noble or lowly, and so on. When it comes to Buddha nature, even compared to people who seem very inferior, it is exactly and precisely the same. In fact, some people, in terms of their deeply held faith, their profound compassion, and their truly genuine and authentic qualities, are truly remarkable individuals, truly have qualities that I should learn from. We often encounter some Dharma teachers or very outstanding talents in Buddhism who may not necessarily have made great contributions in society, but after entering the Buddhist path, they have indeed achieved a great deal. In this way, we ourselves also need to reflect. There are certainly many, many virtues in others' mental continuums. At the same time, if you truly want to spread the Dharma and benefit sentient beings in Buddhism, you should first undergo a period of ascetic practice. There is a saying, if you wish to be a dragon or elephant in the Buddhist community, first be an ox or horse for sentient beings. Even in the secular world, people say this. If you want to become a truly outstanding person in Buddhism, you should first endeavor to be like an ox or a horse for all sentient beings, diligently serving and assisting them. There is also a saying, before attaining Buddhahood, first establish good relationships with people. Before achieving Buddhahood, you should first widely form positive connections. First, you must be a good person, possess a virtuous character, and then continue on the path to Buddhahood and study the transcendent teachings. In the world, what is character? It is reflected in several aspects. First, a person should possess basic wisdom. Second, one must be steady, both physically and mentally. Being steady is very important for a person. Third, of course, is the need for pure discipline. Also, one should have the skillful means to cooperate with others and handle various situations. At the same time, it is necessary to possess courage and eloquence, among other qualities. These are some of the basic qualities. Even among ordinary people, we say, oh, this is a good person. This person is truly remarkable. If one has such character, then even within the Buddhist community, they are considered outstanding. Otherwise, if someone is particularly inferior in our worldly society, after entering the Buddhist community, not only will they fail to achieve any path of liberation themselves, but even worse, they may bring contamination to Buddhism itself. Indeed, there are a few degenerates, some particularly inferior individuals, within the Buddhist community today. They have already damaged the entire appearance or image of Buddhism. Indeed, because of the misconduct of a few individuals, some people simply do not understand. Why did the Buddha, in his time, prohibit those with an unseemly appearance or those who held wrong views from ordaining as monks altogether? Because not only are they of no benefit to the Buddhist community, but in fact their conditions for joining are not yet mature. The Buddhist community is, after all, a group of truly exceptional people. At the very least, it is a community of individuals who have already transcended worldly character. Therefore, here in the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, historians or the academic community have their own ways of understanding it. We, on the other hand, rely on authentic spiritual teachers in a proper and realistic manner, and when we interpret it from this perspective, there are also different methods of understanding. I hope that as we study this time, everyone should, on one hand, make sure to clarify the literal meaning, and at the same time, for every step and every important part, everyone should understand them clearly. Starting from today, in this section, the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is divided into 10 chapters, and we are currently discussing the first chapter. We have already discussed several issues before. Today is the sixth issue, which should be about having everyone present their verses. At that time, the fifth Patriarch ordered everyone to submit their own verses, using this as a summary. The following is said: One day the Patriarch called all his disciples together and said, "Let me tell you, the matter of life and death is of utmost importance for all beings in the world. You spend your days only seeking blessings, not seeking to escape the sea of suffering that is birth and death. If your own true nature is deeply deluded, how then can any external blessings truly save you?" One day, the revered fifth patriarch, Master Hongren, called together all of his devoted disciples, every single individual who was diligently studying and learning under his profound guidance. He summoned them all to his presence. He had some truly important and significant words to impart to them. What exactly did he say to them? Today, I want to tell you this. Now, everyone in the world must understand that the matter of life and death is of the utmost importance. The issue of escaping birth and death is an extremely important matter. This is of utmost importance, an extremely significant matter. But as for all of you now, you spend your days seeking only blessings and good fortune, seeking rewards for your merits. Every day, it's about making a fortune, being safe and sound, staying healthy. Many people are like this. Just like nowadays in some temples in Han region, those who burn incense and worship the Buddha, if you listen in from the side, most of their vows are made for themselves. They seek peace and blessings in their current lives in this very lifetime. But they do not seek to escape the sea of suffering of birth and death. Many people have not even thought about cutting off the root of samsara. They do not aspire to be free from the sea of suffering of birth and death. Many people are like this. If you do not recognize the true nature of your own mind and only keep seeking blessings, how could such blessings possibly save you from the sea of suffering in the three realms of samsara? It's absolutely impossible. We also talked about this a couple of days ago. Loving kindness and other similar positive emotions do not inherently contradict ignorance, so they are unable to completely and thoroughly eliminate all faults and imperfections. Although compassion and similar qualities are extremely meritorious, they are not fundamentally opposed to true ignorance and self-clinging. Therefore, relying on cultivating great compassion, bodhicitta, or accumulating some merit and virtue cannot fundamentally uproot you from samsara. That is why it is essential to practice the emptiness of selflessness. This point is very important. Honestly, I think that nowadays in the Han region as well, for the majority, though I can't say everyone, most of the very famous teachers, including philanthropists, on the surface, are they doing good deeds? Yes, they are doing good deeds. They set up many foundations and use all sorts of methods, encouraging people to release animals, to spend their days accumulating various kinds of merit. I rejoice in this very much. Does this have merit? It definitely does. But such merit, can it truly liberate all sentient beings who form a connection from the sea of suffering in samsara? That is the question. Here the fifth patriarch also explained this to them very clearly. If you have not truly realized emptiness and recognized the true nature of your own mind, and only perform some virtuous deeds on the surface, I see that many Buddhists do indeed recite sutras and circumambulate stupas, and every day, as long as they do some good deeds on the surface, they think that's enough. Our human life is extremely precious, and with such a rare human body, if you only perform superficial good deeds without pursuing something more important, that is, the Dharma of emptiness that severs self-clinging, it all comes down to the Dharma of emptiness, self-clinging. Whether it is Chan Buddhism's direct realization of true nature, or Vajrayana's direct pointing to mind, or Madhyamaka's non-self of persons and phenomena, if you do not seek such wisdom of emptiness, then other merits and virtuous roots are actually not the true cause for eradicating the root of samsara. This point, I believe, is well known to everyone who studies the Platform Sutra. When we are discerning any issue, we must first distinguish what is important and what is secondary, and start with what is most important. Ordinary people in the world, for example, a butcher who's about to slaughter a yak, he first severs its vital root. In the same way, if we want to be liberated from samsara, what is the fundamental cause of samsara? It is ignorance and self-clinging. Ignorance and self-clinging can be overcome by bodhicitta and renunciation. As for other practices, such as releasing animals, reciting sutras, copying scriptures, or doing charity, etc., can these work? They cannot serve as the direct cause, but they can help indirectly. Are these considered favorable conditions? Yes, they are favorable conditions. But the most fundamental thing is that we must recognize our true mind. Therefore, if everyone wants to be free from the cycle of birth and death, what the fifth patriarch teaches here coincides perfectly with what we have recently studied in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika. So everyone must reflect on this. Each of you should look within to see your own wisdom and realize the prajna nature of your own mind. Each of you compose a verse and present it to me. If you grasp the essential meaning, I will transmit to you the robe and the Dharma, and you will become the sixth patriarch. At that time, he said, all of you are currently just performing superficial virtuous deeds and have not truly engaged in prajna emptiness or matters related to this aspect. He then required that all of you, at that time there were over 1,000 disciples under him, a very large number. He asked them, each of you should go back and examine your own wisdom. Use your own wisdom to observe your mind and realize the prajna nature of your original mind. In other words, you must recognize the true face of your own mind. What is its original nature? You should use your own mind to observe your mind and take a look. See what kind of insight you have, what kind of realization you possess. Please compose a beautiful verse and then present it to me, if you would. If your verse truly and profoundly demonstrates a comprehensive understanding of the essential and fundamental meaning of the Buddha Dharma, then I can confidently entrust to you all the sacred robes and the profound Dharma teachings that the esteemed fourth patriarch Dioxin meticulously passed down to me, and in doing so, you will rightfully become the revered sixth patriarch, because at that time the transmission was done individually. There are also similar cases in Vajrayana, such as the Longchen Nyingtik lineage and others. At the very beginning, Guru Padmasambhava also gave the teachings directly to Dakini, Yeshe, Sogyal, and others. It was essentially like this. The Dharma transmission among the Chan patriarchs in those days was also like this. He said, if you all truly, he told the people below him, in modern terms, each of you should do an assignment for me. But this assignment is not like the ones people do nowadays, just copying randomly. You must truly reflect on yourself. Actually, nowadays, I often think, for example, if Madhyamaka, Buddhist logic, and the treatises in the sutras were openly taught in high schools, universities, and other such institutions, the wisdom of these people would increase greatly. Because when people are in their 20s or 30s, roughly between 17 and their 20s, that is when a person's wisdom is at its peak. At this time, if you are exposed to some truly profound things, whether it's reflecting on your own mind or the teachings of Madhyamaka and Buddhist logic, which are of course the best, but unfortunately, many people nowadays have never done this kind of assignment before. The fifth patriarch required all of them to compose such an enlightenment verse. He would then verify them to see how well you had written. He required each of them to go back, and here it is said, go quickly, do not delay. If you hesitate and overthink, it is useless. For those who have seen their true nature, realization must come instantly upon hearing the words. If that is the case, even in the midst of battle, one could realize it. After assigning the task, he required them to go quickly without delay. After going back, they had to immediately compose an enlightenment verse for him. You must not be slow or drag things out. Don't waste time. Compose it for me as quickly as possible. During the process of composing, thinking and deliberation are of no use. Your discriminating thoughts, your deliberations, they are useless, they don't work. When you are composing, what I want is not your discriminating thoughts. Compose a verse and present it to me. Deliberation refers to all discriminating and deluded thoughts. Even if you compose a verse, it has no real value. These things are useless. But truly, when you observe your own mind in the present moment, if you are someone who has seen your true nature, then, in that very precise and specific moment, you will most definitely and clearly see the original, true, and inherent face of your own mind. If that is indeed the case, not to mention in your daily life and everyday activities, even if you were to go to the battlefield, fully armed with all kinds of powerful weapons and protective gear, it would essentially be the very same. Even in extremely urgent and critical situations, right at the very brink of a significant crisis, you would remain steadfast. At that particular moment in time, the fundamental mindset and internal disposition of someone who has truly become enlightened will absolutely not change or be altered in any conceivable way, because we all inherently know and understand that the truly enlightened mind, whether facing immense challenges on the battlefield or navigating through extremely stressful and demanding situations in the course of daily life, it is very difficult for us to observe our own minds. But if someone is truly enlightened, they can recognize their mind in any situation, and in such a state, they will never be separated from it. Therefore, a truly enlightened person, no matter where they are, can always manifest their realization. However, if someone has not attained realization, but people think they have, then even on the battlefield, there will be some negative behaviors. In the past, there were some lamas in Tibet who were said to be realized beings, and they themselves also believed they were realized in a place in my hometown. Later, there were some minor wars between tribes. His family members, the so-called enlightened person's family, had already been killed by the other side, and he was extremely angry. He rode his horse, holding a gun, and charged at the enemy. As he charged, his horse was shot dead by someone else. He himself was injured, and after being wounded, he became even more furious. Other people who were dissatisfied with him said, "Isn't he supposed to be enlightened? Why today does he not abide in the clear and aware nature of mind? Why is he still charging at the enemy with a gun?" Some people also gave him other negative comments. No matter what, you could say that such a person is not truly enlightened. However, a truly enlightened individual, in their everyday existence and within any given circumstance or situation they may encounter, possesses the profound capacity to achieve a genuine and profound realization. This realization is not merely intellectual, but deeply experiential. Therefore, at this juncture, we have thoroughly explored the very first crucial issue at hand. When practicing virtuous deeds, one must aspire to attain liberation from samsara. In Chan Buddhism, it is often said that one should be free in life and death to reach such a state of freedom over life and death. We ordinary people are bound by life and death. Both life and death are constrained by our own afflictions, leaving us without freedom. But truly, great masters are completely free in life and death. At that point, you could say there is nothing at all. When one reaches such a state, there are no thoughts of discrimination whatsoever. So what did the fifth patriarch require? He asked that we not let all kinds of deluded thoughts or wild imaginings turn into incoherent speech. That is neither called a diamond verse nor an enlightenment verse. Here it refers to the truly indescribable state, expressing it with words and writing. Of course, some things can be symbolically represented in a basic way, but for some, even using words to express them is very difficult. As I seem to have mentioned before, when Bodhidharma was in China, he had already practiced for 9 years at Shaolin Temple and had cultivated many disciples. Later, when he was searching for his successor, he felt that among his disciples there were 4 who were quite outstanding, so he thoughtfully asked them about their understanding. One of them, named Dao Fu, said, "This state neither truly clings to words nor completely departs from words." Bodhidharma then said, "You have only obtained my skin. You have not truly grasped my fundamental essence, my very core being." There was another named Nanzongchi who seemed to be a female disciple. She said, "Seeing is no longer truly seeing. After witnessing this profound and ultimate truth, there is absolutely nothing more to genuinely perceive or comprehend." Later, the Venerable Bodhidharma, with his deep wisdom, thoughtfully said, "You have only obtained a mere portion of my physical essence, my flesh, and not the complete spiritual understanding. It's just a slight, almost imperceptible improvement over the previous, earlier understanding." Then there was another, the insightful Dao Yu, who at that particular moment in time clearly and articulately said, "The so-called five aggregates and four elements are all empty in nature and ultimately unattainable." Bodhidharma praised him a little, saying, "You have obtained my bones." Later, Huike didn't say anything. He just bowed to him, and that was all. Bodhidharma was very pleased and said, "You have truly obtained my marrow. Only then did you obtain the most essential part." Later, his robe and bowl were passed on to the second patriarch, Master Huike. Sometimes when we use words to explain, it's actually not the real thing. It's just conceptual thinking and discriminating thoughts. In Dzogchen and Vajrayana as well, there are often many instances like this, including Sri Simha and Guru Padmasambhava. Whether in their direct transmission to disciples or in public teachings, they would use a completely symbolic method, letting the disciple contemplate the emptiness of space or realize that everything is ultimately unattainable. They would use a simple gesture or straightforward language to point it out. This is similar to the Chan practice of investigating the Huatu. After that, for disciples with sharp faculties and the right karmic connection, enlightenment could happen instantly. So here we need to understand that the true state cannot be described or expressed through language or conceptual thought. What was discussed above is a significant requirement that was carefully set by the esteemed fifth patriarch. Next, we will proceed to the seventh crucial part. Shenxiu thoughtfully composes a profound verse, which primarily and comprehensively describes this intricate and meaningful process. After receiving their instructions, everyone withdrew and said to each other, "All of us here, there is no real need to compose a verse with a clear mind and present it to the master. What good would it do? Elder Shenxiu is already the head instructor. Surely he will be the one to attain it. If we were to compose verses in vain, it would just be a waste of effort." At that time, the fifth patriarch asked each of them to compose a verse expressing their enlightenment. There were so many people at Dongchen Monastery then, over 1,000 individuals. After they came down and received the instructions and requests from their master, they each left their places and began to pass the message around, discussing it among themselves. During their conversations, some people said, "We are all just ordinary disciples and practitioners here. There's no need for us to rack our brains or go to great lengths putting in so much effort to compose an enlightenment verse and present it to the great master. It's really unnecessary. What's the point of doing this? We're all just ordinary people and we haven't attained enlightenment. Even if someone had attained enlightenment, the master wouldn't accept someone like us anyway." At that time, many of them also felt that, on one hand, those practicing Chan Buddhism at least knew what their own level truly was. It's not like nowadays where a few people, after studying for just a couple of days, when asked if they've attained enlightenment, might pretend and say, "I've already awakened." They really want to receive the robe and bowl, so they start composing some verses. Some people, after being ordained for just 2 or 3 months, start saying, "I'm going to spread the Dharma." When the master tells them they still need to study a bit more, they can't stand it. The masters also require them, no matter what, to study for at least 6 or 7 years. Even in our worldly education, elementary school is 5th or 6th grade. Nowadays, elementary school is also like that. Back when we were in school, elementary school was 5 years. Now, if you haven't completed 6 years, it's not acceptable. If it takes 9 years for people in the world to reach the level of junior high through compulsory education, as for the profound principles of Buddhism, you don't understand even a little bit. It's as if you've just come into contact with it, just received the lay precepts. Right after ordaining, immediately, "Oh, now that I have no hair, I can go back to my hometown to spread the Dharma." They're extremely impatient. "Today I shave my head, tomorrow I buy a bus ticket. I'm going to my hometown right away. They're waiting for me. I'm going to spread the Dharma. I'm going to benefit sentient beings." Actually, benefiting sentient beings, if you do it too early, it won't work. If you do it too late, it won't work either. Some people have stayed for a very long time, already 10 or 20 years. They think, "No, right now I definitely don't have the ability to benefit sentient beings. I'll wait a few more days, wait a few more months. After some more time, when I have a bit of realization and attainment, then I'll go. There's nothing wrong with that. Can I stay a bit longer? If I do voluntary work, that's fine too. I want to generate a vast aspiration, but if not, I can at least do some menial work." Some people think this way, though it might not necessarily be reasonable. There are indeed certain individuals who specifically articulate and express sentiments such as these. Was it a man or perhaps a woman who uttered these words? Can you guess? At that time, those practitioners of Chan Buddhism were honest and straightforward. They directly state, "We most definitely do not need to engage in this activity. Let us simply forget about it." They said that at the time, Shen Xiu was the head monk. In the entire monastery, aside from the fifth patriarch, at that time, Shen Xiu was very prestigious and held considerable authority. He was the current preceptor among the 5 types of Acharyas. He was the senior monk specifically responsible for conferring precepts and conducting Buddhist affairs in the monastery. They said, although the master asked us to compose verses about enlightenment, in reality, he definitely values Sheng Xiu the most. He surely intends to give it to him. There's no doubt about it. Nothing more to say. We compose these verses, but it's just so the master doesn't have to reject us outright. On the surface, each of us writes something. But in reality, just wait and see. If you don't believe it, it will definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, be Sheng Xiu. There's absolutely no question about it whatsoever. For us to compose verses and poetic lines like this so casually and without much thought, it's truly like wasting our precious efforts and valuable time. It doesn't really mean anything substantial or profound in the grand scheme of things. At that particular time in the revered Dongchan monastery, apart from the fifth patriarch, Shen Xiu was truly remarkable. But later on, everyone here is surely very clear about what happened. Looking at the whole history, Shen Xiu was truly an outstanding master. But at that time, when the sixth patriarch Huineng was there at the same time as him, he did not receive the Dharma transmission from the fifth patriarch. However, later on, his efforts in spreading the Dharma were extremely extensive. Originally, when Shen Xiu started out, he studied Taoism and Confucianism. He was just like today's university professors in the secular world. He was very well versed in ancient culture, including the 4 books and 5 classics, as well as many other traditional cultural teachings. Later, when he was 50 years old, he met the fifth patriarch. In front of the fifth patriarch, he did voluntary work for a long time. It was about 6 years, if I remember correctly. During those 6 years, he stayed in the monastery. He did hard labor like carrying water, chopping wood, pounding rice, and so on. Many tough jobs during those 6 years. At that time, his character and personal integrity were truly outstanding. Later, the fifth patriarch also entrusted him with responsibilities because he was indeed exceptional at that time. At that time, he was the chief senior master in the monastery. After the fifth patriarch passed away, the Chan Zen teachings, one could say they flourished everywhere, from north to south across the entire land, spreading far and wide. At that time, his lineage was called the Northern Transmission, or the Gradual School. Although Sheng Xiu did not receive the robe and bowl, he spread the teachings very widely in the north. Huineng, on the other hand, spread the teachings very well in the south. Later, it seems to have been around the year 700 AD. At that time, Empress Wu Zetian heard that Chan Buddhism, especially Sheng Xiu's teachings, were truly exceptional. By then, in the year 700 AD, he was already over 90 years old. Wu Zetian intended to invite him to the imperial palace to serve as the national preceptor. But he spoke very honestly, saying that the true 6th-generation heir to the Chan Dharma was Master Huineng. I do not possess that ability myself. It would be best for Empress Wu Zetian to go to the south and ask Master Huineng to come to the palace. That was the first time Empress Wu Zetian heard Master Huineng's name. In other words, it was the first time the ruler had heard of him. Later, through various means, she also sought out Huineng in the south. At that time, Huineng had already refused and did not go to the palace to serve as national preceptor. It is said that there were 2 reasons for this. One reason was that he was from the south, and his physical appearance was not particularly impressive. He was concerned that this might have some impact on his Dharma lineage. Unlike Sheng Xiu, who was tall, dignified in appearance, and a northerner which was highly regarded, he was a bit worried about coming from the south. He feared that at that time such a person might not be accepted. Another reason was that his master, at the time, the fifth patriarch, had instructed him to spread Chan Buddhism in the south. Later, he used illness as an excuse and did not enter the imperial palace. However, Empress Wu Zetian later offered him a sacred kasaya and many other generous gifts as heartfelt offerings. She also graciously bestowed upon him several grand and distinguished titles. So I ponder whether it was the esteemed Southern School or the equally significant Northern School. Chan Buddhism was indeed widely and extensively propagated throughout the entire East, the vast South, the expansive West, and the far-reaching North at that time. This widespread propagation was mainly thanks to the influence and dedicated efforts of these two truly great and revered masters. However, from these historical accounts and records, we can see that Sheng Xiu was a remarkably honest and genuinely sincere individual. He may not have truly attained enlightenment, and the fifth patriarch did not pass the robe and bowl to him at that time. He himself also believed this, as can be seen from some of the stories that follow. At that time, he had not truly experienced sudden enlightenment. Unlike the innate pure foundation in our Dzogchen tradition, where one attains realization instantly, this was not the case for him. However, on the other hand, he himself did not harbor jealousy. Another significant thing to consider is that his overall attitude was genuinely and truly honest. He didn't conceal or hide anything at all from his esteemed teacher and spoke very directly and forthrightly. This particular characteristic could certainly be considered one of his most defining and prominent traits, you could say. It was a remarkable aspect of his personality. As just mentioned, many people had already thought of this. Even if we were to try, it would be utterly useless. It is most definitely Master Sheng Xiu. When everyone present heard these significant words, they all immediately calmed their minds and said, "From now on, we will rely on Master Sheng Xiu, so why bother composing a verse ourselves?" They all believed that Master Sheng Xiu was definitely the enlightened one. After he finished composing his verse, there was no need for us to write one. Such talk kept circulating, being passed around from person to person. In the end, none of his disciples intended to compose an enlightenment verse. Everyone said, yes, yes, we don't need to write a verse now. This time, there's definitely no problem with Sheng Xiu. He must be the enlightened one. The master will surely pass it on to him. After it's passed to him when he becomes the sixth patriarch, we can all rely on him. There's no need to trouble ourselves by composing all sorts of verses now, so there was no need for it. They said this at the time. Next, let's talk about Sheng Xiu. Sheng Xiu thought to himself, the reason no one is presenting a verse is because I am their instructor, so I must compose a verse and present it to the master. At that time, Sheng Xiu silently reflected, judging from the current situation in our monastery. The master asked each of them to compose an enlightenment verse and present it to him. But here, everyone is just passing the message around, and they all think that I will definitely have no problem. Because they all regard me as their personal instructor, so none of them have composed a verse. In this case, for me now, on one hand, as the senior instructor of the monastery, if I don't compose one, the master might not be pleased, so I must do it. On the other hand, so many people have high expectations of me, so I can't not compose one either. Therefore, I absolutely must compose such a meaningful verse and then offer it to the esteemed master. That was indeed his initial, deeply considered thought. For various compelling reasons, I definitely have to compose this particular and significant verse. But deep down, he still had some inner conflict. If I don't present a verse, how will the master know the depth of my understanding? If I present my verse, seeking the Dharma is a good thing, but seeking the Patriarch is wrong, for it is the same as an ordinary mind. If I seize his sacred position, how am I any different? If I do not present a verse, I will never attain the Dharma. What a dilemma, what a dilemma. Here it says that later he had some inner conflict and kept thinking it over. If this time I don't compose an enlightenment verse, the fifth Patriarch will not know the depth of my realization of emptiness in my heart. So this is an opportunity. In all this time, 6 years, there hasn't been a single chance for the master to personally verify my realization. This should be the best opportunity. If I don't do it, it really won't work. But then he thought, if I do it, there are some drawbacks. Why is that? If I take this opportunity to compose an enlightenment verse with that intention, there are two possible situations. One situation is if I do it for the sake of seeking the Dharma, because if the fifth Patriarch is truly enlightened and possesses profound insight and has a deep understanding of the Dharma, he will also pass down the profound teachings of Chan directly to that person. So if my intention in composing a verse this time is to seek the Dharma, then this is a good thing, a virtuous deed. Everyone would praise it, and I myself should do it. But now the fifth Patriarch has just said, whoever attains enlightenment will receive my robe and become the sixth Patriarch. If I seek it with the intention of truly obtaining the position of the sixth Patriarch, then ordinary people in the world also compete for good positions and start fighting for fame and profit. There are such cases too. This phenomenon is no different from that of worldly people. This is a particularly undesirable phenomenon. So now, if I don't compose the verse, I won't obtain the Dharma. But if I do, others might not understand my intentions. Perhaps many people feel the same way. So now it's even more difficult. What should I do? He is indecisive. And if I don't do it, it seems that so many people have expectations of me. If I were to do it, it genuinely feels like I'm doing it solely to become the designated successor of the fifth patriarch, to gain some personal advantage, which isn't very good either. Some time ago, I specifically asked a few Dharma friends here to carefully write. Even though we haven't attained enlightenment, I asked them to write their graduate theses. Some of them had some concerns. If they don't write, it seems like they're missing an opportunity, so they're not sure what to do. If they do write, it feels like it's just to get the diploma. Haven't I already become a monk? After ordaining, if I still pursue these things, isn't that pretty much the same as ordinary people? So writing isn't good and not writing isn't good either. What should I do? Some people indeed also harbor these kinds of thoughts. But in actual fact, I can also clearly discern from this particular observation that Sheng Xiu was extraordinarily well-read and extensively knowledgeable. His worldly learning and intellectual prowess were, without a doubt, genuinely and profoundly impressive to behold. However, worldly knowledge often has little to do with realization and one's true nature. Sometimes there are certain obstacles because when someone learns a lot and knows a lot, their thoughts can easily disturb their genuine present insight. This includes our debates and also some of our usual discussions. In private, what are we often thinking about? We want to win arguments against others, and we jot down many different viewpoints. At such times, it often creates some disturbance to our own state of inner calm in the present moment. So from this, we can also see that from the beginning, Sheng Xiu was a bit conflicted. He couldn't not write, but writing wasn't right either. He was a very honest person, and he directly expressed this reasoning. But when it came to solving the problem, the fifth patriarch specifically asked not to overthink it, just to write it down directly for him. But now he kept thinking it over and over, and the more he thought, the more complicated it became. So he was a bit conflicted, wondering what to do. I don't know if the film adaptation they created about this particular story is exactly like that. I watched it a considerable amount of time ago, but unfortunately, now I have completely forgotten the specific details. At that time, Sheng Xiu was really caught in a dilemma. He didn't know what to do. Writing wasn't right, but not writing didn't seem right either. If he didn't write, he wouldn't receive the Dharma. The Dharma was truly extraordinary, and this was a great opportunity. But if he did write, it would seem like he was trying to become the sixth patriarch, to be the successor. Everyone was thinking that way, and if he wrote like that too, it wouldn't be very appropriate for a practitioner. So it really was quite difficult for him. Many people might truly feel that way. If there is a master who truly passes down his lineage, as someone who is honest and has a lot of discriminating thoughts, he might also find himself in a state of inner conflict. If you take the time to reflect deeply and truly inwardly, everyone can genuinely and clearly understand that fundamental truth. In front of the fifth patriarch's hall, there was a corridor with 3 bays, and they planned to invite the court artist Lu Zhen to paint the Lankavatara transformation, as well as the genealogy of the fifth patriarch, to be preserved and venerated. At that time, another episode was mentioned. In front of the Dharma hall of the fifth patriarch, Master Hongren, there were 3 corridors. Actually, these 3 corridors were all plain white walls right in front of his residence. He originally planned to invite a specific individual named Lu Zhen, who was not only a devout Buddhist, but also a highly skilled painter. In this particular context, the term Gong Feng specifically refers to someone who was commissioned to create paintings exclusively for the imperial court. It is, in essence, a formal job title. He held the esteemed position of court painter Lu Zhen, and his primary specialization was in the art of painting itself. It's just like how we have certain painters with specific titles. Originally, in the corridor in front of the fifth patriarch's residence, there was a blank wall. They were planning to paint on this wall. One was the Lankavatara transformation, and the other was the genealogy of the fifth patriarch. Everyone knows about the Lankavatara transformation. From the fifth patriarch and above, including Bodhidharma and others, when the teachings were passed down, they placed great importance on the Lankavatara Sutra. Many great masters also attained enlightenment through relying on it. At that time, the Lankavatara Sutra was in the country of Sri Lanka. It describes the entire process of how the Buddha taught everyone at the Lankavatara assembly. It's similar to our current Amitabha Pure Land paintings or Buddha's life story paintings. In Chinese Buddhism, there were also such Lankavatara transformation paintings. He originally wanted to show that before Bodhidharma, the most important thing in Chan Buddhism was what the Buddha had passed down. It depicts the entire process of how the Buddha taught the sentient beings he was meant to guide at that time. This is described in the Lankavatara transformation paintings. He originally wanted to paint this image on that empty wall. There is also the genealogy of the 5 patriarchs, which traces the lineage from Bodhidharma to the 5th patriarch Hongren. It's a lineage chart of all the lineage masters. We often have portraits of the Dzogchen lineage masters. Now, in the memorial hall of our guru, the wish-fulfilling Jewel Dharma King, there are thangkas of all the Dzogchen lineage masters, from Samantabhadra Tathagata all the way to the present day, including Toga Rinpoche and those above the wish-fulfilling Jewel Dharma King. In Chan Buddhism, they also have portraits of all the lineage masters, and below them are some verses composed at the time of their enlightenment. Accompanied by these enlightenment verses and so on, originally on the empty wall, they wanted to paint these 2 kinds of charts. The intention was to pass them down in the world for future generations to make offerings to. This was the 5th patriarch's original plan. But unexpectedly, Shengshu's enlightenment verse would be on it. This was meant for the future, not for now. There was originally such an empty wall. After Shengshu composed his verse, he wanted to present it several times and walked to the hall entrance. His mind was in a daze. Sweat poured all over his body, and he couldn't bring himself to present it. Over the course of 4 days, he tried 13 times to present the verse, but failed each time. Because Shengshu had not attained enlightenment, earlier he kept wondering whether he should compose it or not, with many thoughts running through his mind. After much deliberation, he finally decided, I should do it. I'll just do it. No matter what, he had already composed the verse. After composing the verse, he thought many times about going to his master to submit it. It wasn't until he reached the Dharma hall of his master that his mind became hazy and confused, feeling a bit scared and nervous. His entire body was completely drenched in sweat, a clear sign of the intense pressure he was under. Some individuals, when they are being tested, truly don't even know who they are anymore. One moment they will confidently say this, and then the very next moment they will say that.
Yesterday, at a particular moment in time, when the names of certain individuals were announced and called out first, ahead of everyone else, creating a noticeable and perhaps even significant distinction among the assembled group, I genuinely thought when this person eventually comes up, he or she will definitely put on a truly memorable performance, because you see, it's their very first time.
So at that particular time, Shengshu also went there on numerous occasions, visiting many times. In the past, sometimes when we went to pay respects to our revered master, we were also very afraid. At first, we weren't that scared. But by the end, we were extremely nervous, lingering at the master's door. For example, sometimes when we discussed certain matters of the Institute, after discussing, we still couldn't make a decision ourselves. A few of the senior Kenpos of the Institute and some others, for certain matters, we definitely had to consult the master. Then we would start pushing each other, saying, you go, but no one dared to go. Then we would draw lots, but even after drawing lots, no one dared to go. It was often like this. So at that time, perhaps the 5th patriarch was indeed very imposing. The disciples were especially afraid. Maybe it was like that. Shengshu was always particularly afraid. Many times he truly wanted to offer his profound verse to the esteemed master, but he never quite managed to gather the courage to do it. Over the course of 4 full days, he diligently went back and forth 13 times, attempting to present his work, but still didn't succeed, 13 times already. He would go to the door, stand there again, and still not dare to go in. He was afraid, so he came back again, still afraid. On one hand, I think he was extremely respectful toward his master, unlike people in the world today who generally don't take their teachers seriously. He wasn't arrogant and dismissive like that. On the other hand, it could also be said that he wasn't an enlightened one. If he were enlightened, he wouldn't care about these things. He would have just thrown the verse to the master directly. Maybe it would have been like that. There wouldn't be so many concerns. If he were enlightened, he wouldn't have these worries. Chu then thought, why not write it on the corridor wall and let the master see it himself? If he says it's good, I'll come out, bow, and say it was my work. If he says it's not worthy, then I've wasted years in the mountains, receiving others' respect. What path would I have left to cultivate? Later, after thinking it over and over, he came up with a clever idea, a solution. The master wanted to paint the Lankavatara transformation and the genealogy of the 5th patriarch. There was an empty wall, and recently the master had been paying special attention to it. Every day he would look at that empty wall. Why not write the verse I composed on that wall so that the master can see it naturally? That would be best. If the master sees it and praises it, saying it is well written, then I will come forward, bow to the master, and say that it was composed by me, Shen Xiu. He was also quite a clever individual. If the master explicitly says it's not good, then I absolutely won't say anything at all. The master wouldn't know who wrote it anyway. But in my heart, I still felt very ashamed. I've already stayed on this mountain for such a long time, for so many years. And as the esteemed head instructor, I frequently and consistently receive numerous offerings, profound respect, and humble prostrations from all of my devoted students and followers. So the crucial question arises, how can I genuinely and truly cultivate the spiritual way amidst all of this attention and adulation? At that particular moment in time, he had two distinct and well-defined plans firmly in his mind, you could certainly say. Gain and loss follow conditions. The mind neither increases nor decreases. He hadn't reached that state where gain and loss are left to fate and the mind remains unchanged. He was constantly feeling uneasy, but if the master truly didn't approve, he would feel especially ashamed. As the head instructor of a monastery, he felt deeply embarrassed. He felt very awkward in front of so many people. But if it was praised, he was determined to say, I wrote it. In the middle of the night, at the third watch, without letting anyone know, he took a lamp himself and wrote the verse on the wall of the south corridor, expressing what was in his heart. He went at midnight during the third watch. It's said that the first watch is between 7 and 9 p.m. Then from 9 to 11 p.m. is the second watch. And from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., about 2 hours, is called the third watch. So it's roughly around midnight. Because in Han regions, it was generally like this in the past as well. Nowadays, many temples in Han regions are not like our institute. At our institute, it seems that at 10 o'clock, everyone is still seriously attending class. But in most Han region temples, by 9 o'clock, all the lights are already out. They start getting up at 4 in the morning, so maybe that's how it is for them too. So after 9 o'clock, it was probably already late at night and very quiet. Shen Xiu quietly got up when no one knew. In one hand, he held a small oil lamp. With the other hand, on the blank wall that the master had prepared for painting two images, he began to write his own verse. After finishing this, he could reveal the realization he had attained. It also meant that he had put down in writing the insight he had realized. So what exactly did he write? What do people often like to recite? The verse profoundly reads, "The body is indeed the Bodhi tree, the mind like a bright and polished mirror stand. Always strive diligently to keep them truly clean, and let no dust ever alight." After writing this significant verse, Shen Xiu quietly returned to his room, and absolutely no one knew about it. The essential meaning is that the body is the Bodhi tree. When the Buddha attained enlightenment, it was also under the Bodhi tree. So our body has a direct karmic connection with attaining Buddhahood, just like when the Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. For us to attain Buddhahood, the enlightenment of the mind is manifested through the body. The mind is like a bright mirror stand, clear and transparent inside and out, able to reflect all things. A mind that is open and upright like this. Such a mind needs to be constantly cleansed through various acts of repentance and practice. We must never let the dust of greed, anger, and ignorance begin to taint it. On the surface, this verse seems very well written. As a true gradual practitioner, for those with ordinary capacities, these principles are still valid. The body is very important, and the mind should not be tainted by many afflictions. We need to constantly repent and always observe our own minds. If we put it this way, it sounds very good. This is his realization. But here, we can also see that it doesn't really seem like he has truly attained enlightenment. It's just a simple preliminary practice, or a verse encouraging people to do good. This can be seen clearly because he only says the mind is like a bright mirror stand, but what exactly is a bright mirror stand? He doesn't explain any profound principles. The last two lines of the verse just express the need for repentance and constant diligence. After Shen Xiu finished composing the verse, he went alone to his quarters at night. I'm not sure if it was winter. If it was winter, he would curl up under his blanket, afraid that others would find out. But at that time, no one noticed, and no one saw. Shen Xiu kept thinking, if the fifth patriarch is pleased with my verse tomorrow, then I must have a karmic connection with the Dharma. But if he says it's not good enough, then it must be because I am deluded. My past karma is heavy, and I am not fit to receive the Dharma. He couldn't sleep at all. After returning, he kept thinking about it. Oh no, tomorrow when the master sees the verse I wrote on the wall, will he be pleased? If he is pleased, that means I really have become the sixth patriarch, and that I have a very deep karmic connection with the Chan school's Dharma gate. Then how will I go on to spread the Dharma, guide disciples, and benefit sentient beings, and so on? He thought about all these things over and over again. Then he thought, if the master sees this verse, if he doesn't acknowledge it and even scolds me and rejects it, what should I do then? It must mean that I myself haven't practiced well enough, that I haven't recognized the true nature of my own mind, and that's the reason for my confusion. It also means that the karmic obstacles from my past lives are especially heavy. It shows that I have no affinity with this Dharma, and I definitely won't receive any teachings. He kept having all sorts of thoughts about these two possibilities in his mind. The master's intentions were hard to fathom. He lay in bed thinking, unable to rest, tossing and turning until dawn. He kept wondering whether the master would acknowledge him or not the next day. With such profound and subtle intentions, it's really hard for someone like me to fathom them. He kept thinking back and forth in his room, pondering over and over again. He couldn't sit still, couldn't stand, and couldn't fall asleep either. Restless, whether sitting or lying down, he stayed that way until dawn, when the sky brightened at 5 in the morning. So from this verse we can also see, first, his desire to attain the Dharma was indeed very strong. Otherwise, some people might feel that it's fine whether they attain it or not. If one doesn't have faith in the master or isn't attached to the transmission of the Dharma, then it wouldn't matter. He would definitely sleep soundly. As for me, since I've already written this verse, I didn't dare to go earlier, but now that I've written it, it doesn't matter what the master thinks anymore. He might have felt that way. But on the other hand, he was extremely respectful toward his teacher. Throughout these texts, he went to see his teacher so many times. He was also particularly attached to whether or not his teacher acknowledged him. So, as gradual path practitioners, as those who follow the stages, the key points of relying on a teacher are also explained very clearly here. And in fact, this is quite similar to the mindset some of us have. On the one hand, we want to follow the teacher and insist on writing this verse. And on the other hand, we also have to consider certain aspects of ourselves, such as how others praise or criticize us in various ways. At the same time, we worry about whether or not we will attain the Dharma in the future. This is actually very similar to the mindset some people have nowadays. Back then, during Shenchu's process of spiritual practice, he was actually a very honest and genuine practitioner. I have previously read some stories and brief biographies of Master Shengshu, and indeed he was a very good person. Many people from the Northeast say, we Northeasterners are very straightforward, very forthright, and so on. They often say this. Maybe it's true, he really did have a particularly good character. But he was a bit too caught up in discriminating thoughts, always weighing what was good or bad. One moment he was thinking about this, the next moment he was thinking about that, and before he knew it, it's already the next day. That's it for now, all right? It's like a TV series leaving us with a cliffhanger. What exactly happens next? There's a short commercial break in between, all right?
Chupun Solen Droa Droa Sha Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye